Hi, Sarah from SEWNZ, Sewing Patterns for Children's Clothes. Chances are you're here because you are wanting to know how to sew the H&G top, which has a lovely yoke up here with a hidden pocket, sewn when you sew the yoke on, binding for the neck edge and binding for the cuff, and also just a slight scoop, nothing too major. Let's get sewing. Okay, we've got the master pattern for the H&G's top, and I've drafted out the pattern on filing to cut our fabric pieces from. Make sure you put in the markings, the pattern title and the piece how many to cut out. We have the fabric pattern pieces cut out, back on the fold, the lower back, the back yoke on the fold, sleeves, front yoke, single piece, front lower piece, a single piece, and you need to make sure you got the right sides facing, and also some binding for the neck. Can be in the pattern colour or the plain colour, and binding for the sleeve as well, ready to sew. So we're putting the front of the top together. We've got the front yoke and the lower front, and you needed to make sure that they're right side facings when you're cutting them out specifically. And matching up the corners of the pocket, the marking in the middle and at the sides. Pin it together, and we're going to sew it with stretch stitch. I've sewn the seam with zigzag, and I've also done a straight stitch to give a nice sharp corner to the pocket. We need to press that yoke seam down the body of the shirt. So we're joining the back of the top to the lower half, so we've got right sides facing, and we're going to match markings, so the middle notches. Right, ready to sew. As for the front, we're going to press the seam down the body of the shirt towards the hem. We're only going to pin one of the shoulder seams, and we sew it from the neckline to the arm seam. And we're going to sew that with a stretch stitch, and then we're going to attach our binding to the neck and then sew the other shoulder seam. And we press that shoulder seam towards the front, and what happens is when you're looking at the shoulder line, when a t-shirt's made this way, you don't see the ridge of the seam. Okay, so we're attaching the bias binding to the neck, so we're going to start at the top of one shoulder here, go around to the other shoulder. Make sure you've got right side facing, very slight stretch as you pin it around. Right, so the binding's pinned on. Once we sew it with our stretch stitch, we're going to clip the curve so that it releases any tension. And you can either leave it as a 1 centimetre seam allowance or trim it back to say 5 or 6 mils to have a thinner binding, and do the same for your sleeve edge. So here it's quite curvy. Clip in every centimetre or so. So we've sewn our binding to our neckline, and we're going to match where that seam is. Okay, so we've pinned first at that seam edge between the binding and the shirt front to match those two seams. I've put a pin in on the angle of the shoulder, about 1 centimetre in and down here, and we're going to sew from the binding to the armhole. I've sewn from the neck binding down to the shoulder, and I've actually clipped the seam allowance on a triangle to reduce the bulk, and from the right side, making sure that the front seam is pressed this way. I'm just going to pin it down for now and fold the binding over, and we're going to pin around. Right, it's all ready to top stitch with a stretch top stitch. We're attaching the sleeves, and with right sides facing, pin it at the centre seam, the markings, all pinned up ready to sew with our stretch stitch. We've sewn the sleeve into the armhole and we're just going to clip it at the curves to release tension. Once you've clipped this, you can press the sleeve, whole sleeve seam towards the cuff of the sleeve. Okay, we're doing the sleeve binding, and it's right sides facing, slight stretch, not much. And we're going to sew across with our stretch stitch. Okay, so we're going to trim the binding before we sew the side seam. So I want you to do a straight cut, the same as the seam allowance, and then I want you to trim it same as the shape of the sleeve, and then when we sew it, we're going to sew down there and along there, and it'll be the same as just hemming a sleeve normally. We're going to do the side seam, and what we need to do is match all those seams. So pin at the seams, the marking at the hem, there'll be a slight overlap with the front going down past the back, but you'll see when you sew the 1 centimetre seam allowance it matches up nicely. And again, match the cuff when pinning, and pin in between. Right, so our side seam's ready to sew. We're going to sew from the hem up to the sleeve cuff. Okay, so I've sewn my seam, and once I've sewn it, I trim about 1 to 2 centimetres up from the bottom hem. It just reduces the bulk in that hem seam. And I also clip the edges of the seam allowance to reduce the bulk, and also in the sleeve cuff. So we're going to press the side seam towards the back. Okay, so when it comes to the top stitching of the top, I tend to pin all that and sew it all at once rather than take out my top stitch, twin needle and put in the other one. All about time. So I've folded to the wrong side a 1.5 centimetre hem allowance on the bottom of the shirt. I've folded the binding over to the wrong side and pinned around for the sleeve cuff. That can be quite tight, you just have to pull it out and move it around. And I've already had the neck pinned ready to go. So sewing with your stretch top stitch. Okay, so I've top stitched, and I've trimmed away the excess binding from the neck and the sleeves. Be careful when you do that. I had a little bit of a nip going on, so I've sewn it, the little hole, together with zigzag stitch. All finished. Hey, thanks for watching. There's a link below to SEWNZ.com, and if you're interested in our range of patterns other than the H&G's top, please have a look at our Etsy shop to see what's happening. I love sharing all the steps of sewing a pattern so that you're successful with your sewing. Happy sewing!